This is Therese, a wheelchair-bound stroke victim who's only able to say the words "in den Wolken," German for "in the clouds."
In den Wolken.
In den Wolken?
Wolken?
What does it mean?
Up in the clouds.
Oh, how beautiful.
In a movie about wealth, obliviousness, and status, it's appropriate that these be the only words she can say. Nearly everyone in this movie is, to some degree, living in the clouds. But Therese, who gives voice to this idea, is not. Forget flying, she's incapable of taking a single step. Her words are empty and aloof, but her experience is poignantly, painfully real.
Yes, I know. I'll get back to you. I know. Sir? Sir?
Today, I'm going to talk about Ruben Östlund, the Swedish filmmaker responsible for one of the best movies of last year, Triangle of Sadness. Like many great directors, Ruben's work feels instantly strange, in a good way. Somehow, in an oversaturated art form, he's managed to find a style that's uniquely his. When you watch his films, you can sense that there's something specific there, a particular array of intentional creative decisions, the workings of an auteur. I'm going to break down his style into 4 major sections and examine how each of them contributes to Östlund's overall spirit of heightened satiric realism. I don't know if that's an official category, but I'm just gonna use it and yeah. More specifically, I'm going to try and answer the question, how come Östlund's films feel so absurd and devastatingly real at the same time? Why are they so uncomfortable to watch? And what exactly is Östlund saying by forcing us to see only Therese in this moment instead of him or her or him? Östlund's films always succeed in making me uncomfortable. That's partly because of his choice of subject matter. In Triangle of Sadness, it's social hierarchies and power dynamics. In The Square, it's art and ego and social contracts. But for Östlund, it goes beyond that. He doesn't just deal in difficult topics, he also forces the viewer to think about them independently. He's not going to hold your hand and tell you what the right answer is. The truth is never so kind, so neither is he. He forces you, first of all, to feel everything. Instead of cutting away from a painfully awkward scene, he waits there, patiently, until the foundational beliefs or qualities underlying the awkwardness are brought into question. Is high art a reflection of human truth? Or is it another socially contracted way we delude ourselves? If art was a reflection of the truth, would it look more like this, or this, or this? Östlund doesn't give us the answer, he just displays the endless contradictions and bids his audience to saturate in the resulting discomfort. This iconic scene from The Square goes on for a long time. The famous vomit sequence in Triangle of Sadness goes on for a whopping super duper long time. These scenarios are all heightened. They're not the kinds of things we witness in everyday life, and yet they feel unpleasantly, severely real. If Östlund didn't take his time, didn't ground his often absurd scenes in realistic, slow-paced storytelling, patient storytelling, his movies might lack their satirical punch. Fleeting absurdities never hit quite as hard as ones that realistically, humanly unravel and refuse to let you go. Christian storyline begins with a stolen wallet and phone and escalates to this, then this, then this. None of which would hold nearly as much dramatic and comedic weight if they hadn't come on top of each other, supporting each other in the slow climb to climactically uncomfortable cinema. Brevity might seem like a confusing word to use moments after talking about how long Östlund's scenes can be, but bear with me. Filmmaking is a language in much the same way that English is a language. In English, there's letters and words and punctuation, etc., and in filmmaking, there's composition, lighting, blocking, and the multivarious elements that make up the filming and editing of a scene. In English, brevity is defined as a concise and exact use of words in writing or speech. And so in filmmaking, where words are your shots and punctuation is your cut, Brevity is the ability to use these tools precisely, intentionally, and delicately. Where some directors might overwhelm their films with stuff, Östlund is of the view that less is more. See, for example, the differences between the avalanche scene in Force Majeure and its counterpart from the American remake. In telling the same story, Östlund uses one shot to... where the American version shouts at you, "Look at what's happening, isn't it crazy?" Östlund instead presents an ice-cold sequence of events and allows the viewer the space and respect to have an honest experience. In Force Majeure, we are gradually brought to the realization of an immense character moment.
Vad är pappa?
Är det bara konstigt där?
J'ai encore la cigale.
Oh mon gars, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Tu pars sur le vite. Attends, mais c'est pas pris.
C'est ça, ouais. C'est bra.
In the American version, we're smacked over the head with cut after cut after cut, and look, he took his phone, what a crappy dad, and it all just feels so forced and artificial. Like the filmmaker is demanding we form a negative opinion of the dad, telegraphing that he's the piece of shit of this movie. Östlund doesn't want you to instantly think, what a piece of shit. He wants you to ask, to wonder, is Tomas a piece of shit? Would I exemplify my stated moral values under similar circumstances? Or would I betray myself? And is it really even a betrayal? What do we mean by our stated moralities? In the end, we know Tomas is flawed, yes, but is he much more flawed than anyone else? And how do we know? We can feel these questions in Force Majeure because Östlund doesn't overwhelm them. Everything is deliberate. Camera placement, shot composition, blocking, push in, push out, wide shot, close up, all the tools of the filmmaker used exactly as they're needed, with eloquent concision. The American version says, Tomas is an absolute coward and a shithead. Force Majeure carefully, quietly, concisely presents the question and never fully gives an answer, never fully lets us off the hook. There's an idea in long-form improvisation known as the game of the scene. The term was popularized by the UCB Theater and remains at the center of their approach to long-form improv comedy. Game is essentially the funny thing, the gag that drives the nucleus of a good improv scene. It's oversimplified, but there are different ways to activate the game. I'd like to talk about what's called analogous game moves. To go analogous is essentially to take the idea of a given scene and move it to another environment with a new set of characters. The pattern stays the same, but everything around it changes. It's a way of replaying the funny idea to surprise an audience and get more laughs. Ha 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 ha. Humor. So many humors. The reason why analogous scenes work in improv is the same reason why its namesake, analogies, work in daily life. Analogies provide us new entrances into old ideas. They have the incredible power to surprise us with something we already know, which is kind of a miracle. You might know that, for example, life is short and time is finite, and you might have learned that lesson 100 times, but you can still learn it again. Have a truly erudite experience again with data you've technically already downloaded. Provided, of course, the data comes in a new package, in a freshly dressed analogy. That's the most important factor. In both the case of analogous improvisation and analogies in general, if the new packaging is cliché or expected, it will ultimately fail to stimulate surprise, laughter, or learning. In Ruben Östlund's film The Square, theme is paramount. Art and artists' ideals and ideologues are smacked up against a number of radical social discomforts. Over and over, their professed creeds are tested against their actual behavior when shit gets real. The film follows Christian, the head art curator at a fictional museum in Stockholm, and for the most part, Christian is the main event, the primary expression of a theme. He says things like,
Præcis der på samme måde en overenskomst om, at i The Square, der passer vi på hinanden. Der hjælper vi hinanden.
And yet treats his staff with coldness and uncare. He is obsessed with artistic authenticity, yet rehearses false spontaneity into his public speeches.
Undskyld, men jeg synes, det her det bliver alt for stift. Må jeg ikke få en chance for at begynde forfra?
He is always saying one thing and doing another. Through Christian, the filmmaker is asking whether art and culture aren't just humanity's worldwide engagement in a great game of pretend, and a pretend that demands a near religious belief in the idea that we are, at times, above it. Östlund argues that we're not above anything. We are human. We're mean, we're opportunistic, we're afraid, we're tribal, and the Christian storyline does a wonderful job of exploring this idea. But here, in two of his most iconic moments, Östlund takes the themes expressed in the main story and sets them at the core of two off-narrative events. They are purely game moves, analogies, unfamiliar portraits of familiar ideas. In this way, Östlund treats theme like improvisers treat game. He finds new characters and circumstances to surround and underline his funny thing about humanity, his gag about our unconfessed natures, and through that surprises the audience and exposes his theme in new and meaningful ways. It's why his films feel so thematically rich. By the time they're over, Östlund has pointed at the same idea with a motley of impactful vignettes. The credits roll and we almost have no choice but to feel in our bones what Östlund has been trying to tell us. Östlund's marriage to realism isn't merely a philosophical directive. He actually bases his films and often individual scenes in his films on real-life stories and clips he finds on the internet. One of his first films, Bank Robber, is a near beat-by-beat replica of an actual bank robbery he witnessed in person. In the hands of another director, Bank Robber might have looked more like this.
Hey! Look, I'm trying to be polite, all right? Just sit tight and this will be over soon.
Than this.
Kör!
Here, Östlund posits that movie perceptions of a bank robbery will never create something as truthful and real as the unexpected dullness of actual bank robberies, and the same applies to any other real-life event.
Me as a film director, I think it's important, since we have YouTube and we have access to all the moving images in the world, basically, on the internet, I have to compare myself and my expression towards the expression that is in these very unique movement that someone have uploaded on the internet.
By finding ready-made material in things that have already happened, Östlund removes, to a degree, the inorganic pressures of invention and gains the fundamental realism of factual events. Now, of course, Östlund doesn't just copy-paste YouTube videos and call it a movie. He reshapes his findings to fit a larger theme. In Force Majeure, Tomas is a guy pretending to be stronger than he is, a father playing a socially ordained patriarchal role. 20 minutes into the film, we already know that Tomas is lying to himself. He is and has always been more afraid than he lets on. He's a man, a father, in denial. And over the course of the film, as Tomas is forced to experience the dissonance between who he is and who he is supposed to be, Tomas is eventually reduced to this. Which looks really similar to this. A viral video Östlund found on YouTube. On set of Östlund's most recent film, Triangle of Sadness, actors Harris Dixon and Jean-Christophe Foley were shown this video of Denver the Guilty Dog before shooting the pretzel burglar scenes. This was the result.
What's this?
Well, we didn't.
You didn't?
No, we didn't.
And you're sure you didn't?
We are sure we didn't.
Very sure.
Yes.
Stunningly human, stunningly primal and childish, a perfect illustration of the new social hierarchy of the island. Harris has gone from hot model to boy toy, rich influencer to master's pet, and still, a pet is in some way what he has always been. Both the pretzel scene and the crying scene fit perfectly into their respective films. You would never guess at their inspirations, but you remain extraordinarily affected, because the truth affects. Even if it's repackaged and fitted in a different context, the truth is the truth is the truth. And so there was Therese, paralyzed, effectively mute, and shipwrecked by food poisoning and pirates. Her circumstances are heightened, her character is heightened. The only words she can speak allude thematically to the heart of the film. It's all, on the one hand, very contrived. And yet, in this quietude, while the rest of the survivors gather their wits, Östlund delivers a moment that feels so patiently, heartbreakingly real.
Yes, I know. I'll get back to you. I know. Sir?
By refusing to budge the camera, Östlund transmits the feeling that in this new world where primal survivability determines your value as a human being, Therese is worth very little. Therese here is a microcosmic expression of the larger theme of the film, that in every human society there will always be people who are, as it were, worth more and worth less. It's a horrible conclusion. It's a horrible thought to have. And Östlund doesn't have a solution to this uncomfortable idea, but he doesn't shy away from showing what is, what sucks, and what hurts about being a human being.
Oh.
Nein.
Mir wife.
In den Wolken!